Call to order.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yep.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
All present.
Now have a moment of silence. Thank you. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Dr. Fox, are there any agenda changes or additions?
No, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Dr. Painter makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Mr. Lansbury makes the second.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes. Okay, we're into matters for closed session. Roll call vote to certify personnel matters discussed in closed session.
Said a roll call vote.
Yes, but you have to have a motion first.
Yeah, you have to have the motion. I think. Yeah.
I make a motion that we certify that personnel matters discussed in closed meeting was per to Virginia Code Section 2.2-2711A1 pertaining to the discussion, consideration, or interview of prospective candidates for the school board employment, appointments, transfers, resignations, appointees, or employees of the school board for personnel and instruction, transportation, bookkeeping, substitute teaching, administration, and contracted services.
Before we move on with the second, Mrs. Smith, the citation is 2711.
37, it said 27.
Yeah, it's 37.
It's 37, okay, section 2.2-3711A1.
Okay, Mrs. Smoot makes the motion.
Second.
Dr. Painter makes the second.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes. Now I need a motion for approval of the stuff discussed, the matters discussed in closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve all matters discussed in closed session.
I have a motion by Mrs. Sutherland Smoot. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second by Mr. Gubler.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes. Did you want to start reading one, or did you want to read first?
Oh, sure.
Wait, I have to read it first. Page County, almost forgot about this piece. Page County School board welcomes citizen comment during regular meetings. School board members do not respond to public comment during a meeting. All comments should be addressed as a matter related to Page County Public Schools. The school board will not hear public comment that involves an individual student-related matter, the disclosure of which would be a violation of acceptable to confidentiality requirements. The school board accepts that each speaker will be courteous, modeling for our students how one can respectfully agree or disagree with others' views. Speakers will address their comments to the entire school board and not to one individual member, nor to the superintendent, a staff member, or the audience. Speakers will have 3 minutes to present their comments from the podium. Please state your name and your address.
Am I allowed to take this off so that I can speak
Sure.
better, clearly? My name is Amber Burns, and I live at 2740 Lucas Hollow Road, and I have 3 students in Page County Public Schools. I've been a lifelong member of this community with the exception of living in Prince William County for a year. I moved back to the county I love so much in 2005. That small town pride runs deep, but that pride has seemingly turned to disgrace as I watch what is being done to our children. I can no longer sit back and watch the incompetence any longer. I will not stand back idly watching you fail at your job of serving the children and families of this community. The 2018-19 school year was one of the worst years of influenza our nation had seen. Many schools closed, however, ours did not. Not once during the school year did we require the children to be muzzled to stop the spread of influenza, a virus more dangerous to the children than COVID-19. Since we are to follow the science and guidance of COVID-19 recommendations, let's look at their numbers. The CDC estimated there were 480 deaths among U.S. children due to flu in the 2018-19 season, including 136 cases in which the virus was confirmed by laboratory testing. As of mid-August, 90 children died of COVID-19, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. More than 46,000 children were hospitalized for flu in the 2018-19 period. The hospitalization rate among children aged 5 to 17 was 39.2 children per 100,000 children. The hospitalization rate for COVID-19 is 6 per 100,000 for that same age group of 5 to 17, according to the CDC. The science is pretty clear. We did not mask our children for influenza, and we should not be masking them for COVID. If I sent my children to school every day wearing a helmet for fear of falling objects from the sky, I would be viewed as a quack and possibly investigated for abuse. You are instilling fear into our children that everyone is sick, and hugging or having interaction with their peers is somehow going to kill us all. You're denying these children their God-given right to breathe oxygen. If we were intended to breathe carbon dioxide as opposed to oxygen, surely our Creator would have designed us that way. Speaking of our Creator, it is quoted in Matthew 18:6, "If anyone causes one of these little ones to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea." We could also conclude the definition of causing them to stumble was not providing them adequate nutrition, something parents would be investigated by CPS for doing. Our local county inmates are fed better than our children. Something is very wrong with that picture. Not only were parents not made aware of the supposed food shortage from your supplier, you hid the fact of there being a staff shortage of cafeteria personnel to provide the children with meals. There are sadly a number of children within our community that rely on this food because that is all they receive. I use quotations around food because it is nothing more than genetically modified garbage that I wouldn't personally feed to hogs. If staffing and food shortages were an issue...
Ms. Burns.
Yes, sir.
Time's up.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Burns.
Bambi Jesse, 172 Landmark Road, Raleighville. Good evening, and thank you each for your time. Please know, as a community member, I put a lot of thought into what I wanted to say this evening. And as a mother of former foster children, I put a lot of thought into their privacy and story. My children are all, before being placed with me, came from homes without food security. My youngest children came on a CPS radar after one of them at age 5 was turned in multiple times for going door to door begging for food for them and their siblings. I've had a front row seat for the last 10 years to what can be can do to a child's psyche. I've watched everything from food hoarding to today still dealing with food anxiety. When I tell you this is a cause near and dear to my heart, I mean it. That also means I don't care whose feelings get hurt in the process, because your feelings are less important to me than making sure that a child is fed. I don't set out to hurt anyone's feelings, but if it happens, it happens. If you've not been part of a system that allows you to see just how broken this world is and how many children go hungry each night, or if you're privileged that you have never had to worry about where your next meal came from, or watched firsthand as a child worried about where their next meal was coming from your excuses do not matter to me. Staffing issues and supply issues are an excuse, and a pathetic one at that, when it comes to letting any child go hungry. This is 100% no one's fault that works in any of these schools. This lies on you, our school board, and school board office's shoulders. Until you are each willing to ensure that food is served that you yourself are willing to eat, then you're failing our most vulnerable children. No apologies, I do not accept the excuse given. Unless you have witnessed a child eating after they haven't had a meal in days, then I don't expect you to understand how passionate I am about this. If you ever have witnessed this, I cannot imagine the heartlessness that must have went into the decision to serve such meals. Just know that groups of parents all over this county are more than willing and have been picking up your slack, providing meals and snacks for most vulnerable children. If staffing and background checks truly are the issue, then every member of this board and school board office should have threw on their hairnet, gloved up, and chipped in to help the schools out. Each of you are voted or hired to serve our community. With all due respect, do it.
Please state your name and your address.
Pam Lawson, 2656 Fleaburg Road, Shenandoah. So I actually was coming tonight. I want to thank you all. I know it's been a rough summer with us for voting no on the transgender policy. I want to thank you. That's what I really came to speak tonight about, was to just let you know that I appreciate it. I know a lot of people in the community were really appreciative, and I'm sure you're not getting the appreciation sometimes that you need, but the emotions are high. And then I do want to talk about the lunch, I brought this for you all. I don't understand. All summer long we fought about the bathroom issue. But if we knew there was a food shortage before school started, could a memo not went out to the parents of the people who could pack their kids' lunch to pack their lunch? It would have been great. Thankfully, my child, the half a day, she generally don't eat breakfast, but she did go through the line on the first day. And then she was like, I just forgot about it. I wasn't going to eat it. So she's now taking chips or something like that for the half days. But, I understand the bus has been late, just picked her up late. I've missed work because she's missed the bus because it was supposed to be late, but it came early. And I missed an hour of work to take her to school. And I can deal with the staff shortage, but somebody dropped the ball somewhere. This should never happen. And I'm going to tell you why this bothers me. When I was in 7th grade, before I moved to this county, I lived in West Virginia. We didn't have power. For a month, we ate out of a cooler to finish our last year of school. And I will never see my child have to eat like this, ever. And nobody else's. So somebody can go to Walmart or something. I know that they say that you can't because of regulations, but sometimes we have to have a spine and tell Richmond, too bad, we're going to feed our kids. Get them some fruit, get them something other than this. Because if we feed this to our spouse when they come home, they wouldn't eat it. None of us would feed this to our spouse for dinner or lunch. And that's all I have to say. But I came to really thank you all tonight. I know it was a tough summer. So thank you. And I'll leave this.
Thank you, Ms. Lawson.
Chandler Gregg, Ridgeview Lane, Shenandoah. I would like to know how the funds are being handled for our schools. It's obvious that it's not going to the lunches or extracurricular activities. Parents who would normally utilize the free lunch program are having to pack their children's lunch because the food you all are serving them is inadequate. Would you eat a bun and some sun butter for lunch and be happy and able to go about your day focused and ready with just that meal? Parents always have to shell out tons of money every year for fundraisers and extracurricular activities and programs like sports or band. So where's all the grant money going? Where's all the local, state, and federal money going? Read another one.
Read another one. Yeah.
I'll read a short one. Deborah Gokenauer, 1453 US Highway 340, Stanley. I did warn you I gotta skip the name on how they have no thought about anyone else but their own. They have been ordering cheaper produce for which I would not give to wild animals. We got told off the food temperatures was not correct, but Tuesday some children's chicken was still frozen. Yes, short-staffed does not help, but I still would like her to tell me the real reason why she wanted the Shenandoah ladies to resign. She has made you all look stupid. And I would like you to reappoint a new person and ask someone to step down.
Hello, please state your name and your address.
My name is Felicia Atwell. I live at 449 Landing Lane, Stanley, Virginia. I have 3 children in your schools, 2 at Stanley Elementary and 1 at Page County Middle School. My son at Page County Middle School is a disabled child with autism, ADHD, anxiety, and severe depression. They are coming home with lunches that are bread, soy butter, a few pieces of carrots or apples, whichever is given to them that day, or chips. 3 children. I now pack my children's lunches, and my son is so upset for the other students that he doesn't even eat his lunch. I offered to make 65 lunches and drop them off at the schools. I was told no, they would go in the garbage because of COVID. So let's discuss COVID. My son rides from the middle school to the elementary school on a public bus. We're so concerned about COVID that I can't give you free meals for these children. But you're putting 3 kids to a seat and having children sit in the aisle for a bus ride that took them 45 minutes in 92-degree weather. And yes, they may have on their mask, but explain to me how that is okay. But it is not okay for me to bring you free lunch that I paid for out of my pocket. I am deeply concerned, and I am being told that it is funding. I'm being told that it is shortage of staff and shortage of food. And if that is the case, then you should not have opened our doors. If I feed my children this and they come to the school and they complain that they're not getting enough food at home, you would call CPS on me and they would be at my door. However, you won't allow the public to help you. My autistic child asked for a chocolate milk. And he was told that since he packed his lunch, he could not have it, and that that's just the way it is sometimes. This is my first school board meeting, and this will not be my last. And if I do not see changes, I'm coming for your seats. This is not fair to any of the kids, not just mine. A lot of our children, they only get that meal. And now they're not getting that. And I have videos, I have pictures of other schools' lunches who are getting pizza, they're getting corn on the cob, they're getting cheeseburgers and mashed potatoes, but our children are eating bread? How is that acceptable on any level? And if any of you have children in these school systems, why have you not stood up? I graduated from this area, went right into the military, came back, and I work here, and my kids go here, and they have went to your schools since they were born. This is unacceptable behavior for anyone, and especially for adults, and especially to cater for your teachers, to have food donated to your teachers and your faculty, but not to our children who are sitting down the hallway. So does that tell me that your teachers do not care about our children?
Your time is up. Ms. Atwood.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Carol Raudebush, 985 Shipwreck Road, Shenandoah. It's very upsetting that on Friday it was known by the nutritionist that they did not have enough workers to prepare lunches at the school and that the menu would be changed to more or less bread, a fruit or vegetable, and peanut butter substitute. I find this unacceptable and do not believe enough was done to find a workaround for a decent meal. I come from a time of hearing about inmates getting bread and water in jail, and that is more or less what these children were served on their first day of school. On the second day, it was slimy frozen chicken. Our kids deserve better. I've spoken with the nutritionist, and it was apparent that she was more concerned about defending her decisions to inadvertently feed the kids and push the blame on the government, even when the conversation was civil. I also came away from this conversation feeling that perhaps the thought was that we really wouldn't have the students in school, so there's no need to give a lot of effort. There needs to be a plan in place for situations like this, and there should be someone in this position who will bend over backwards to give these kids a good meal. We have a community that puts kids first, and this been known. There have been outrage, yes, but there have also been a plan put in place instead of reaction. This person knew what the reaction would be, but hoped somehow no one would notice, and that is why parents weren't notified of the change. On a side note, this is not the first time this has happened, and has happened in years past, and more grace has been extended than probably should have. It's time to say enough is enough.
Hello, please state your name and your address.
Terry Comer, 2224 Newport Road, Shenandoah, Virginia. Okay, I have a big problem. I'm a school bus driver for many years, 20 couple years. I've always been told that if we have a 12:30 release, it's 12:30. It's not 12:05. It is not 12:12. And in Shenandoah, I am loading kids at 12:12, 12:14, 12:16, and I am going to Page County High School, and I am sitting for 45 minutes with these elementary kids on a bus that is 110 degrees and 102 degrees. I think this needs to be addressed in Shenandoah. They're under the understanding that I was told by the assistant principal that if we have a 12:30 release, they release at 12:05. If we have a 3:30 release, they release at 3:05. And the kids are sitting on the bus way too long. And another issue that I have is, why are us bus drivers not allowed to know any medical history on these kids? We are the ones that has the biggest responsibility of these kids. We're out on the roads with these kids. If something happens to them, we have no idea what direction to go in. None. I have pushed the issue that I think that we need to be first aid trained, which I am, but you know, when you have a teacher that is in school and has a kid in the classroom, then they have 50 other adults that they can depend on to come help. We don't have none. We don't have none at all. And I think that these issues need to be addressed at Shenandoah Elementary. I understand that it is the first week of school, and I understand that they are new principal and assistant principal. That's pretty much all I have today.
Thank you, Mrs. Coleman.
Michelle Dingus, Stanley, Virginia. Why, when the school lunches are being federally funded, are the children coming home starving, and the description we as parents are getting doesn't match the menus given out? Every county around is doing better than this. I just don't understand. Stephanie Barnes, 924 Eller Grubbs Avenue, Stanley. Food situation for lunches. As I stayed on the phone the other day, please communicate with local businesses and churches if there is any money they can donate for food to be prepared by kitchen staff or delivered. We all know COVID has been rough on all people and situations. Everyone has an opinion, but we need to communicate and do the best for the kids. I was told the situation is now being handled, and thank you for that. If for some reason it's not what I suggested, can please help contact me, and for numbers on here. I know some churches and businesses in Page County ready to help.
Please state your name and your address.
Hi, my name is Cody Henry, and I'm at 383 Parkview Estates in Luray. Here we go. Okay, I'm here today to bring up masks. That's my first topic, and I would like to mention that I wish this was voted on at the last board meeting. I understand the governor has overruled the counties for this time period. However, I would have liked to have put Page County on record showing where our majority lied. So I wish that was part of the conversation last meeting. And I also think that we should not simply give in to the governor. I understand that he is the authority that we have to listen to, but my point to you guys is to please bring it back up to your attorney. I've heard that you guys do have an attorney you speak with. So I would like that you bring it back up to that gentleman or that woman and discuss better options for our kids, because this is a parent choice, not a government choice. And I would also like to offer the idea that maybe you can work with the other counties in the area. If we all band together, because there were multiple areas that said we want our parents to have the choice, and then the governor overruled that. So if we stood together, we could make a difference. And I wish that you guys would reach out to the other counties, other school boards across Virginia, not just the ones locally, but let's band together and show the governor what we actually think of his choice and that we want parent choice. So that is my topic on masks. And I do also want to bring up the buses. I know some people have brought that up as well. My topic was simply on the fact of communication. I felt like there was little organization around that this year. We went in, somebody told us our bus was 17, somebody else said our bus was 58. And we love Miss Lorraine, that's our bus driver. She's a fantastic bus driver, but we did not get our bus pickup time, which didn't change, but we didn't get that until the day before. So it would be nice if we can get a little organization around that. Thinking outside the box would also be good. I've heard a lot of parent complaints. Thank God my kids are on time because it works better for all on time. But some parents have had to wait 45 minutes plus for their bus route. So I think if we sat together and just said, hey, what are the options? You know, I understand one bus has to do their route and then they come back to another route. Can we split that between buses B and C and do a split route to where bus D that's unavailable gets picked up by bus C and bus B? Can you split it instead of making everybody an hour late? So I think there's some things that we could look at outside the box to make that work a little better. Lunches, you guys have heard a lot about that. So I actually am a little mixed on this one. I don't agree 100% with what was fed because it was a little unique. I don't think any of you guys would want to eat it. I didn't want to eat it. But also, it's a half of day, right? So your kids are getting home at 12:30. Feed them lunch at home. They get a snack. My concern is that we have a staff member that truly cares about our kids. I don't think this Virginia woman that I'm not even sure who she is, but I know she cared.
Your time is up.
Yes, it is. Okay. Thank you all.
Christy Ballsley, 140 Riverbend Drive, Luray. The current situation with the food being provided to PCPS students needs to be corrected. I have several issues with this situation. Per the letter from the superintendent, as well as an email from, can't say a name, is due to staffing and supply. I called BS on this. This same gross bag lunches were coming home last year during virtual learning as well. If there is such an issue with your current distributor, which should have been known prior to school starting, there should have been some sort of backup distributor you can purchase from. There's absolutely no reason. The only job is, oh, well, that's all we have. I don't know what the contract is that you have with said distributor, but if there's some sort of clause that says you can only purchase from them, then we need a new distributor. Why is the community not able to send in prepackaged snacks and drinks for these children? If the school can't provide, then we as a community should be able to come together and send in some our kids' teachers to have on hand the event they're needed. There's also no reason that if a child packs their lunch for the day and happens to forget a drink, or their juice box doesn't have a straw, that they can't have a milk to drink their lunch. I mean, come on. I'm sure you're all aware, but the community is currently meeting parents in need before and after school to give them bag lunches for their kids to bring into school so their kid can have a decent meal. This should not have to be done. Staffing. Here's the biggest issue. You absolutely knew you would have staff, what you would have staff-wise ahead of time. There should have been a backup plan. Once you found out the new employees couldn't start, there should have been an all hands on deck approach. All the employees at the school board office should have been split up between the schools to meet the need. I work in management, and if we have call outs that will affect business, then guess who steps in? The bosses, which are you guys. You guys are responsible for making sure business needs are met. In this specific case, that the children are fed a decent lunch. I will end with this. There needs to be serious investigation into, I'm not reading this part because it gets really specific. Mary Barnett, 135 Leola Loop, Stanley. What seems to be the issue over the lunches? The excuse that I have in the items you ordered was a lie. I know for a fact if a distributor does not have what you order, they substitute for items similar to it. The excuse of help is also a lie. We have plenty of people at the school board who could have pitched in to make sure your child had a suitable lunch. There's also so much disorganization this week from the office, the nurses, the lunch, and the buses. You guys had all summer to address these issues. You all have failed our children and who are our future. Remember, you're elected officials, and we, the parents, grandparents, and concerned citizens, can vote you all out. Please address these problems. Julie Seifert, 4388 U.S. Highway 340. Please unmask our children. Neither of my children want to go to school because of having to wear a mask all day. My daughter, a straight-A student who has always loved school, does not want to attend anymore. Make it parents' choice. Becky Shiflett, 516 Denver Avenue, Shenandoah. Great job to the special education department, Lurie Elementary School teachers, and the transportation department. Last year was hard for my girl. They have worked all over summer, and now she is so happy. These group put together a plan for her, and everyone at Lurie is helping. She comes home from school so happy. She has level 2 autism and doesn't make friends easily. She now has friends at school, and for the first time tells me about her day. With all the negative you guys hear, I wanted to let all you guys know Page County Schools has went above and beyond for my girl. Thank you so much. Laura Minnick, 352 Pleasant View Lane. In regards to these lunches, myself and other concerned parents would like to know what your plans are on solving the problem. Page County seems to be the only school having an issue with the supplier and shortage of help. Surrounding schools have given their students an adequate lunch that are fresh. How do you resolve this issue? Melissa Bailey, 693 Shenandoah Drive, Lurie. I'm writing in regards to the wearing of masks in school. First, let me say I do not understand the reasoning behind wearing a mask. However, understanding and agreeing with are two totally different views. Here's my issue with my daughter wearing a mask. As she is in middle school this year and not allowed to have the use of a locker, she has to carry all of her supplies in her backpack, along with her lunchbox and Chromebook from class to class in a hot building, as most of her classes are on the 3rd floor. Now, if you're wondering what this has to do with wearing a mask, I would invite you to mask up. Go to the school in the middle of the hot day, put on a backpack full of supplies, including a water bottle, lunchbox, Chromebook, climb 3 flights of stairs, and tell me how well you're breathing. Then sit in a hot classroom and tell me how easy it is for you to stay focused and you're not getting all the oxygen you need, like right now. I know I couldn't do it and think that it's cruel to make the kids do it as well. This should be a family decision where it's discussed, prayed about, and ultimately left up to parents. Let our kids be kids. Krista Simpers, Lurie, Virginia. Our children need way better food than what you've been supplying the past few days. A lot of children count on this food because it's the only food they get. You really have dropped the ball on making sure these kids have a nutritious meal, making sure they aren't hungry while trying to make good grades and concentrate. Way to go. Pam Kissling, 843 Judy Lane Extended Stanley. The school board has been very disappointing at the start of the school year. It isn't like you were told at the last minute the school was starting on the 23rd. There was plenty of time to prepare. You have made our county a mockery. What's done is done, but a lot is expected going forward to correct the wrongs, especially with the meals our children were distributed. I can't say fed because many did not eat. I'm still in complete awe that any of you thought this was okay. Do better. Vicki Shank Marshall, 120 Pine Knob Road, Stanley. This is child abuse. Making our kids wear a mask is breaking the law. Read the Constitution. We are free. We are starving our children. Where is the food? My child will not take the COVID test while in school. Per news on WHSV. If a child wants to wear a mask, it's their right, but you can't force them to. Start doing your jobs. Travis Knight, Shenandoah, Virginia. My name is Travis. I'm a father of 3 that attend SES and PCMS. First and foremost, I want to say that my comments made here are not directed toward the underpaid, hardworking staff of our schools directly. I am speaking to the board and superintendent directly. To see the images and complaints of children coming home hungry after I watched virtually meeting after meeting, and the health and safety of our children, faculty, and community being the blanket statement for masks in schools while navigating the pandemic, to think that we fail to adequately feed our children is sickening. If it doesn't prove anything, it should prove that the health and safety part is a joke. CPS should be called if my kids aren't being fed at home by the school, yet the school isn't held to the same standard. It's mentioned in the letter that USA regulations stand in the way to be adequately feed our children, also while not meeting the calorie requirements as stated clearly on the USDA website. So we're going to let a regulation written on a piece of paper somewhere keep us from meeting another requirement by the same organization that should far supersede any regulation. This makes zero sense and deserves answers. If red tape really stands in the way, then why hasn't the issue been communicated to the Virginia Department of Education nutritionists to help with logistics and avenues? The mask has the community upset, but this right here should have the entire community in uproar. Could it be the lack of staffing, or is this a result of a food shortage? If there is a true food shortage, why wasn't that communicated via the recorded phone system that is in place and through social media? The neighboring counties have the same staffing issues, from the cafe staff to bus drivers, but are making things happen and seeing that the most important bases are covered. Some children were given hamburger buns with sun nut butter in with slimy carrots, while others were given flatbread in place of a bun. Some were given a pack of mayonnaise without meat or anything to go with the bread. I'm fortunate enough for the ability to provide lunch for my children without the help from any system or government. But it's heartbreaking to think there's kids watching my kid eat while the school fails to provide a lunch that is required to meet specific nutrition. The PCPS website says the mission of PCPS is to provide a lunch that is required to meet specific nutrition. I know I'm over 3 minutes on this one. The PCPS website says the mission of PCPS is to provide an engaging, encouraging, empowering learning environment that promotes student success while failing to properly provide them lunch. I've always paid for my children's lunch. I have no problem packing, but some children have no voice for lunch. Lastly, discussion should be had now as this vaccine is being shoved down throats of employees across the state and threatening vaccine or termination. If you think you have a shortage of staff and materials now, you had better tread lightly when it comes to forcing a vaccine on someone because you haven't seen short staff yet. We had our 30 minutes.
Pretty close. We had 5.
Here, somebody else can have at it.
Where were we?
On top of your page.
Lisa Ward, 222 Creekside Drive. There are 2 issues that I would like to address. One, I'd like to address the most recent issue, the lunches that are being provided to our children who are, fogging up. Someone else want to read it? All right, good. I'm fogging up, so I'm going to take my mask. Can't read it. This is a massive concern to most of the parents in our community. There is no excuse for our children to be served the ridiculousness that is being served. I understand there are staffing issues. However, you cannot tell me that there are not better options. You cannot tell me that you feel this is adequate. Would you eat it? Breakfast and lunch for these children has turned into an absolute joke. Why were the parents not notified that supply was an issue? Why was it not put out for parent volunteers if there was such a staffing issue? Why was it not ordered in time for this first week of school? Why was the start date not pushed back if this was a concern? We need to do better. If the child brings their lunch, they are not allowed to get a free milk, ? This has been a policy for a while, and honestly, it is beyond ridiculous. This needs to change. I'm aware that there is a comparison picture going around. However, I would like to let the teachers know we know you are all not responsible for this mess. I am very well aware that specific day was done for you by someone else, and it was very much deserved. Those of you who actually care about our children deserve every bit of that. I know these school nutritional services did not provide that meal for you. This does not fall on you. However, it does fall on the head of the blank, 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 and the superintendent of our school. While I am aware that Dr. Fox is new to our schools, you have evidently found yourself in the middle of a very large mess. I could say I would hope that you would have issued some sort of letter or message or something letting the parents know that was happening had you known, right? ? I mean, we all received the message about the mask situation, which was apparently a misunderstanding. Number two, our children should not be wearing these masks. You are having them on for hours on end and endangering their immune system by breathing in things your body was not designed to expel. Why? ? This should be a personal choice for families. I'm going to stop it right there. I believe that's 3 minutes. Now, how was it? Not there? Okay. All right, my bad. Their immune system's breathing, okay. This should be a personal choice for families without the issue of bullying and threats. Putting a glorified dog collar around a child's head is not an acceptable accommodation or alternative answer. If we don't like that we go to virtual learning, that keeps our children isolated. If we go to homeschooling, our kids can't graduate with a diploma, can't participate in school sports or functions. If we would have sent lunches the way you all fed our children, we would have all CPS called on us. There are many people in our community who would gladly do whatever is needed to help our kids. All of them, period. Okay, next one. Lisa Bradley, 167 Deerfield Estate, Stanley. That's a new one. I have several issues. First, the lunches. The letter from the superintendent is apparently not what Jenny, blank, stating as to why they had a bun and a few carrot sticks for lunch when surrounding schools were fed hot meals. Unacceptable. We need an answer as to when it will be resolved, not sugar-coated answers that are more lies. Second, I saw numerous school board members, superintendent, and teachers at the fair piled up on each other maskless. The same ones pushing our kids not to take their mask off when seated at a desk. And I can assure you, they were not socially distancing. Yes, they were outdoors, but were spotted in commercial buildings, barns, etc., not wearing one. We need school board members who are there for the children with a backbone for our community and mental health for our kids. My son hasn't had a normal school year since his 9th grade year and is a senior. Although I'm grateful they're in school, wearing a mask every day is very far from what I would call normal. When will someone on the board stand up and speak out for the ones who feel the same as I do? Next one. Michelle Green, Stanley. Does the school board have a plan on getting better food for our children? If so, what does that plan entail? If not, how long before you have one in place? Has the superintendent's gotten back with Dr. Fox? Has the other superintendents gotten back with Dr. Fox on how they are able to get acceptable food? Schools are receiving extra money for the government due to COVID. Does that money not go to providing acceptable food? Why is it that there were issues with your distributors about getting food that parents weren't notified? Were you notified from the distributors that they were having issues providing food? If so, how long in advance did they notify you? What about the rumors that 3 employees from, I'm not going to talk about rumors. The school board dropped the ball on this. You should know in advance if you were having issues with what was being delivered and fed to our children. This is completely unacceptable. The sad thing is faculty and staff want to speak up about this but are afraid because their job is at stake, which is absolutely ridiculous. And don't say that this isn't the case, because it is. All right, next one. Stacy Strock, 114 Emmett Street, Stanley. Good evening. I would like to start with something that happened at the last school board meeting. The board took a vote as to whether or not online comments should be read aloud during the public comment section. First of all, it should not be a question whether to read online comments. Comments were made through the appropriate channels brought forth through the school district. They are sent with the express purpose of being read into the record at the specific meeting. From the few of us that had comments read back, thank you. But for the ones who chose not to read, in case you didn't know, that is called censorship. The school board being a governing body, by not reading their comments, you are censored citizens, the citizens you made them. You have no right to censor anyone or take away their right to have their voices heard. At the same meeting, one of our school board members stated, "There is nothing I can do about that. No matter what the context of the conversation, no one is on our school board should be saying anything even remotely close to, there's nothing I can do about that." If our school board members truly believe there is nothing they can do, then they do not need to be on our school board. They do not need to be anywhere close to our students and their education. If you are not here to do absolutely anything and everything for our students, feel free to resign. We will find somebody ready to put our students first. The last few weeks have been a struggle for many parents. Parents trying to do what they feel is best for their students. The school board has a chance to show the parents of this community that the school board does consider parents' opinions in school matters. But unfortunately, you missed the shot. There was a very simple solution that would have made everyone happy. In case you were not aware, this is a solution. Vote to reject the governor's mandate, as many other districts have. Then give parents the chance to do what they feel is best for their children. Instead, you gave us a loophole, a ridiculous out. You tucked your tails between your legs and said this is the only way, religious or medical accommodations. All this did was demean the legality of medical or religious accommodations. Now everyone is using this as a way to get what already should belong to them, a choice, the right to choose. The only thing you managed to accomplish is giving more stress and frustration to our teachers and administrators. As for the start of school, we failed our students again. Actually, no, you failed our students again. There are absolutely no excuses for how the students' lunches were handled. Absolutely zero. It was not a surprise that students were going to be showing up on Monday. The worst part was the blame being pushed around to everyone else. If staff is short, why not ask for volunteers? We have PTAs and PTOs. Why not ask for a few extra hands? Why not ask for a few extra hands to help out for a day or two? Not allowed volunteers near students, question mark, then keep them in the kitchen. Okay, I'm gonna cut that one off.
I'm ready if you want me to take over again.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Whenever you want.
Mandy Green.
Thanks. Amanda Green, 141 Panorama View Drive, Stanley, Virginia. I want to know what is going on with the bus routes. My children ride bus 48 and are having to sit on a hot bus for 45 minutes with no air. The temperature on the bus over 98 degrees while they sit at the middle school and wait for them to release. This has been all week long. It's been very discouraging to know that our children are expected to wear a mask sitting on top of each other in 98-degree weather. What can be done? Brittany Covage, 1062 Mount Zion Road, Luray. I spoke with the superintendent about masks outside. Per the Virginia Health Department website, it states it recommends that masks be worn outside in large groups or gatherings that involve close contact with other people. But it is not, I repeat, not required. There is no stipulation such as 6 feet apart. So while children are outside for recess, eating, just sitting, waiting for car rides home or bus rides, they not have to be in a mask no matter how close to another student per VDH. So as of tomorrow, my children, 2 at Luray Middle and 1 at Springfield, will not be wearing a mask outside at any time. Misty Anderson, 503 Coverstone Lane. I think the slop you're feeding out kids is a disgrace. I bet you or your kids eat it. For some students, this is all they get to eat, and that is sad. Do I read one if they've already spoke? There's one from Amber Burns, and she spoke first. Jason Wood, 133 High Street. I'd like to tell the board that we should all greatly appreciate the work all the food service workers and supervisors. During this trying time, they're doing a great job, even with the circumstances they're dealing with. They need the public and board's backing and support so they can continue their work. I've seen them pack thousands of meals during holiday seasons this past year to help feed the ones that cannot feed themselves. Even if one person eats because of this, it's an accomplishment. If the community would help during those times and not attack these people on social media, this community would exceed all it can be. There are so many rules and regulations to follow to serve the children of the county. I see they do excellent work even with the obstacles they face. Please salute these workers on an excellent job done now and in the future. Amanda Hensley, 1266 Batman Road, Shenandoah. I was shocked and saddened to see the food being served to our students. I understand there are staff and food shortages, but there seems to be a lack of proper planning and, to be honest, caring. We need someone to lead our division that cares about our students, will do whatever it takes to make PCPS lunches as good, if not better, than surrounding schools. Other areas were able to provide multiple options for students to choose from. There is no excuse. And I skipped a sentence in there that said someone's name. Thomas Walker, 129 Spiros Lane, Luray. How would you like knowing you're eating explicative while the teachers are having food catered to them? You all should be ashamed of yourselves. They have failed our kids and community as a whole. Shut the schools down until they can solve the problem. Tamara Middleton, 388 Runyon Road, Raleighville. Good evening, members of the board. I'm a parent of 3 children that attend schools in this district. I was shocked to find out what was being fed to my children for lunch. At first, I thought they were joking. How could a school let something like this happen? That's when I saw the post on Facebook. Now, I've heard many reasons for this happening, from schools being short-staffed to food not being delivered. But if you were aware of this, we should have been notified prior to school on Monday. At least then we could have packed their lunches. It's bad enough they have to sit all day with a mask on in some rooms that are quite stuffy and then not be fed a decent meal. It's unacceptable. I see online that Not reading that one? Well, in my opinion, I do not think she is doing her job. I do not see anything remotely nutritious in what my kids are fed. If they're unable to do their jobs, maybe replacements need to be considered. After all, this is about our children. Airball from the lint. Our children deserve better. I truly hope the members of the board will keep our children in mind and find a solution to this problem.
Yeah.
On to the next one.
Lacey Price, 108 Harmony and Stanley. Harmony Lane, I'm sorry. Hello, I am sure you all are aware of the outrage from Page County residents about the school lunch so far this year. I have never, in all my years of living here, seen lunch so appalling that I wouldn't have served it to a dog. I understand you are having staffing issues as well as food distribution issues, so you say in quotations. But what you all fed these kids was a disgrace! Exclamation point. You all knew this was an issue before the first day and could have done something. Even if you had to delay the starting of school until the kids had proper food. At the very least, you could have advised parents to pack lunch or ask for donations to order pizza. Heck, why didn't you all have someone gather food from the community garden and make them a salad or something? Question mark. Other school districts didn't feed their kids garbage, so why did y'all? Hope you're ashamed. You take the necessary steps to fix the issue. Sincerely, an angry parent. Sam McIntosh, 259 Hollow Run Road. My situation is the school lunches. First, our kids need a good meal fed to them to have energy to continue through the rest of the day at school. Teachers having food catered to them is wrong. When other kids are starving, some kids don't have time to even have breakfast at home because buses come early. Y'all expect kids to eat dinner to dinner at nights without food through the day? No good kid should go through this kind of treatment at a school. How would y'all like it given a meal from a restaurant with no hamburger and just a bun with a squirt of ketchup? Inmates in jails and dogs at animal shelters eat better than these kids at school. If you have a goods and a staff shortage, then close schools down until everything is straightened up. I am sure y'all wouldn't let your kids starve all day, and neither should anyone else's kids. Thank you.
Let me go back. I'll start coughing again. Holly Bailey Stanley. First off, I'd like to say if any parent or guardian needs help with a meal for your child or children, please don't hesitate reaching out to the many of us who would want to help. Secondly, let me address the fact that I'm very aware that these issues don't fall on the teachers and staff of our schools. So Page County School Board, let me just say the start of the school year has been very unacceptable. I'm going to address what to me is the biggest issue. But you're allowed to be lunches for the children of the county. Shame on you all. But what is even worse than that, in my opinion, is when this meal issue is brought to light, the community was turned away from helping or either ignored with no return calls or emails. When people in the community were told no, we couldn't send in prepackaged food to help with lunches, the next question was, can we send in classroom snacks? And once again, shut down and told no by your nutritional service director, saying no outside snacks. Only parents can provide snacks to their children. So with you'll turning away help from the community, especially when it comes to our children's meals, I have to agree with many people's comments that schools shouldn't have opened until these issues were resolved. I would like to recommend to you all stop leaving parents in the dark, to be transparent, upfront, and honest with issues at hand, because don't we even expect that our children, and y'all are grown adults, we as a community cannot help with issues if we aren't made aware of such issues. Lastly, I'd like to share a business motto with y'all. If someone else has to do your job because you can't, then why do we need you? M. Jordan Co., 163 Lisa Lane, Shenandoah. Nutrition policy. Sending parents to collection who are already unlikely to pay by being in arrears further stigmatizes the poor and indigent in the community. Gifted plan. Current plan and revisions are not designed to accommodate students with disabilities, particularly those with speech impairments and those with asynchronous intelligence areas. 2 grade levels ahead is impossible to achieve for learners that may excel in math and science while having pre-K reading due to unidentified and unaccommodated dyslexia or other learning disabilities, for instance. Subject giftedness should also be accommodated. I've been one of those students who did not ace classes while gifted because I was bored out of my mind, passing 2 grades with a 1.0 for being at best a unpaid teacher's assistant, while being zeroed for not doing remedial work and homework. Behavior is communication, not a reason to deny gifted services. ESSER funds should be used not to promote and condone ABA, but instead shift towards meeting the needs of students. I would strongly recommend the evidence-based model of collaborative and proactive solutions already used in some districts and can be done in a PBIS framework to improve student outcomes and reduce behavior. A beginning consideration is Dr. Ross Green's book, Lost at School. I've read it. Poor planning at the board and administration levels is already harming students. Virtual students don't have logins or have not received coursework, and IEP virtual students are being told related services have to be provided in person. Towards this, because the board/district chose not to inform parents' guardians that in-person learning was not required, but only had to be offered per VDE policy, these delays mean some students have not still begun day one and are already behind. Had the board been proactive about providing accurate information, this could have been avoided. Virtual requires approval of PCPS, so it isn't a choice by the parent for the purposes of IDEA. It is a least restrictive environment adjustment for need. Policies trying to force virtual students to attend in person for the IEP services flies in the face of FAPE and IDEA, which could open the board/district to lawsuits from parents with due process. FAPE, free and appropriate public education, does not require in-person when they're out to virtual or medical. Zoom works. On school lunches, this is another area where responsibility to the students has been shirked, especially those who are singly and multiply marginalized, disabled, indigent, transgender, non-white, and non-Christian students, just to start. People are so concerned about catering to mass votes, they forgot about feeding the students. Do better as elected officials and release people from positions that cannot perform their duties. Whether in admin, nutrition, or on the board itself, the sooner the better for when schools close. And she also emailed information about that PBIS framework that he mentioned in the email. Jennifer Spain, 695 East Branch Road. The school lunch is unacceptable. The excuses given are so unacceptable because no other county around us are having these problems. Look at their hot lunches served to their children. The ones that order a catered meal for our teachers, who deserve it, by the way, think it's acceptable to feed our children the slop they feed them. Maybe they should eat it for a week, build their own sun butter sandwich with greens, carrots. Maybe we need to think about the position and hire someone who would only feed our children what they would eat. Brittany Gift, 310 5th Street, Luray. Hello, my name is Brittany Gift. I have a 5th grader LES and a 2nd grader LES. I was shocked when COVID hit and my kids told me the type of food they were serving them last year. I honestly didn't believe it as bad as they said. Until they started sending home weekend bags, we threw most of the stuff in the trash. I couldn't expect my kids to eat food I wouldn't eat myself. So I started packing for them, and I have ever since. So when school started this year, I planned to pack. I even mentioned how bad food was since COVID to their teachers at orientation. But seeing the pictures surfacing online, I was appalled that it was the same as last year. I feel bad for kids who rely on school food as their main source of food. I know that most kids have loving and caring parents, but you as well as I know that isn't the case for all the kids in Page County. I don't understand the supplier issue as all surrounding counties have hot appetizing meals. Some also have the same grant as Page County. If staffing was such an issue, I believe schools should have been delayed. Someone dropped the ball here, and no one has taken responsibility. We as parents don't want an apology, we want change. If you all can't figure it out, we believe someone should be resigning so someone else can figure it out. Pre-COVID school lunch was a decent meal. I ate with my kids many times. Not sure what's happened in the past 2 years. I appreciate your time. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Next on the agenda is approval of June minutes. We have a motion to approve the June minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the June minutes.
Second. Painter makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Painter makes the second.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes. Next item is review of July minutes. Do Just want to remind the board that they're there for your review for approval at next meeting. First informational item. Nutritional Survey Policy Services Policy Update, EFA, Ms. Jeffries.
Here, she said.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I come before you because in the VSBA policy updates that you approved at your last meeting, one of the policy updates was for policy EFB. However, Page County Public Schools does not have an exact replica of policy EFB. And the main change that was made in that policy is actually found in our policy EFA. And so what I'm bringing to you is our editing, which is limited to the striking of the use of the court system for children with negative balances. And that is based off of Virginia Code 22.1-20741, which was part of House Bill 5113 from the 2020 special session that was effective March 1st.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffries. Mr. Williams? This is a ventilation system update.
Good evening, board. It's my belief that all of the ventilation is up and working that's in the schools now. All the exhaust fans, to my knowledge, are running. All the air conditioners are up and are working as best they can. We're diligently working on them, keeping them going. If they're not working, we're in process of it. We're also in process of working towards replacing most all of the air conditioning and heating systems in the elementary schools and the vote tank. So some of them's quite dated, but they are running and working as of now.
Those are the ones that's on our capital improvement plan?
Yes, they are.
So just a comment on that. So, you know, we heard a lot of comments about masking, the different things. And some hot buildings, I guess it was in the third floor. I don't think you were probably aware of that. I think it was in one of the citizen comments. The child was up on the third floor, had to walk up there, and it's still warm up there. So I don't know if which school that would be.
The only
That'd be Luray Middle.
Right, that's, I assume it was Luray Middle with all the
Yeah, third floor.
third floor. I'm gonna go back. I think Mrs. Burns had some very good comments about 2018 and 2019. I remember when I first came on the board in 2020, we were looking at rates of people being out, attendance rates for sickness. Mr. Benson, maybe if you remember. I remember being about 10, 14, 70% in certain times of the year that we had that many people out at absent because of the flus and the different things going around. You know, there's a lot of things we hear about COVID, and everybody's masked up our children because of it again. Personally, I don't think it's going away. I think it's going to continue to evolve and try to survive. And I really don't want to sit here next year. I don't even want to finish this year with all the kids with masks on. And we're talking about ventilation system. I know we're talking about the cooling and all those things, but we really need to start looking at, because Mr. Goodber mentioned it too, at the last meeting, about, you know, areas of where we could really improve air for our children in the rooms. And I can take you to some rooms at a certain school that I wouldn't want to sit in there all day. So I don't know what we can do or how we're looking at those kind of things, but I think really to be proactive, we need to start thinking about these things and how we can improve the environment for our kids in the classrooms. and I'm glad that we got things moving.
They are.
But I would ask you to do a walkthrough in the heat of the day at Liberty Middle tomorrow on the 3rd floor.
I will.
And see if it's hot, see if it's stuffy. and what
I
they've done about
haven't,
that.
I haven't been there, but
Okay.
I've been through most of them.
And I encourage you to do that. Just get out there. I know you're around all the time, people saying hi to you and stuff.
We put a
Get out there.
backpack on, carry a water bottle.
You can do that too. But
I will
go
make a
there, man.
point
If
to
it's
go.
stuffy, what's going on here? Maybe what we have isn't going to work at that level.
There is no air conditioning in the hall. Each room does have a barred unit in it.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, they are working.
Okay. Now so let's just, if we don't have them in the hallway, is that our intent when we replace them at the elementaries? We're going to have things working in the hallways and the classrooms?
No, sure, it's not. Basically, it cools the outside of the buildings as well as the heat in the halls. Some halls have heat, but other than the high schools, I don't think it's any of them that actually has it in the halls.
So really the high schools are the only thing that's like a central air
That's correct.
type situation. Everything else is manipulated in a different way.
Yeah. So, and with the humidity that we've had, a lot of places that we got windy units, we're doing the best we can do with the conditions we got. It's not ideal, but it's better than
And it's
nothing.
hot.
That's correct.
It's very hot.
It is.
And that should probably maybe go into our thinking next year when we talk about a calendar. I mean, is this week ideal? We talked about it, but is it ideal to start up an extra hot day, hot week?
But then you push into June and it's hot too.
When we are looking at the replacements for some of the ventilation, are we looking at also for special accommodations for influenza and COVID for definitely in the winter months and when we're closed up more, when we replace those units? In other words, with the filters and
That equipment will be designed, most of it for the better filters that's in it, the higher MERV, yes.
to be able to catch some of that. Okay.
And then we're going to go on the high end, even if cost is more. I would rather spend money on high-end ventilation, knowing what we know right now and where we've been and where we might be going. Who knows where it's going to be?
I
I'd
would
rather
agree
spend on
with
the
that.
high end.
I would agree with that.
And when we get the systems, and I know this is probably cart before the horse, but are we thinking about once we get them installed? I know our maintenance crew is already taxed at what they're doing now. Are we going to have a contracted services that will come in and do maintenance and replace those filters? Or is it going to be put upon our maintenance?
We can do that. I spoke with the gentleman today. It happened to be from one of the 4 contractors that we're working with. And that's what we were speaking of the upkeep of the computer part of it. Though, as far as filters and all, our guys can handle that. Some of it, it's out there. It's places that you can't really actually get to. There's certain things that we can do, but the others, you got to call on those. And he was talking about the service of that. And really and truly, we need that. And we actually need it for the high schools now. It's so many sensors on those things that it's very elaborate systems, but it's a lot of working parts and sensors in it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you on that one, Mr. Williams. You're up again for paving updates for Luray Elementary School and Page County High School.
Yes, sir. As the board well knows, we had 2 parking lots that was a lot of asphalt was removed so we could repair water lines and sewer lines last year, Luray Elementary, all out front with we had dug up, and that's all been repaired, put back. Looks really good, extremely good. Mr. Pettit and his crew did a wonderful job. Likewise at Page High, where we had the repairs for the wells. We have some pictures, I do believe. These are pictures of the basketball court at Luray is the one in the middle of that. I'm quite proud to say that we got that because it was pretty rough. It was a lot of, the blacktop was up and down, just wasn't even, and a little bit dangerous, and it gets a lot of use.
And we had the nets off of those rims because of that, right?
I took the rims off so we could paint them.
Okay.
And that kept people off of it till we got it paved and put back. But yeah, they're ready to go back. So, the one on the left is Leary Elementary, which was repaired and re-asphalted, where all the patching was all taken back down and brought from a base coat up to a finish coat, brought back up to level with all the blacktop. It was sealed and restriped. It really looks nice. I encourage everybody to go look at it. It looks new. It was crack sealed and crack filled and sealed, I should say. And it looks good. Page County, the same way. There was a lot up there. The access road around behind was completely sealed. Started down at the middle school. Everything from there up was done around back, and restriped, renumbered. Really looks good. Both administrations have reached out to me and talked with me about it and thanked us for what we did for them. It was a little inconvenient there for staff, whatever, for a few days of time that we had to do it, but we got it in. The weather didn't cooperate completely with us, but for the most part, it did. We were able to pull it off. First day of school, everybody had a nice place to park, striped off, and looked good.
Questions? Thank you, Mr. Williams.
To make a motion that we take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Page County Technical Center enrollment update. Ms. Pettit?
Sir, good evening. I'm pleased to be here with you all this evening to deliver some good news and talk about our enrollment numbers, just to update you all. I had a conversation in the community with Mr. Painter, and he was inquiring about how our year was going. And from that conversation, I just had talked about our programs and just what we were seeing at the Technical Center. So I wanted to go over it with you all, and he asked if I would come, and as did Dr. Fox. So I wanted to give you all an update. So first, I didn't know, when I was thinking about coming before you to give you an update, I didn't know if all board members kind of knew where we started from. I know some of you all have served or do serve on the foundation at the Technical Center, but looking at where we are today, it's really cool to think about. In 1993 is when, fall 1993 is when the Technical Center opened its doors. I always tell the students, and I just told them this past week, that we need to count it as a blessing that we have a technical center in our community, because not every school division is required or has a technical center. And as Dr. Fox has talked about, we have our own, and we can make decisions for our own. So it began with 3 programs. We do have an Eagle and school colors, which people are confused about sometimes. But a couple of principals ago, Mr. Todd Lynn felt like to be a unified school, instead of it being maroon and Carolina blue, we merged into yellow and black. So we have 3 buildings on our campus. So we went from 3 programs in 1993 to a 3-building campus, just most recently adding our welding facility. So as most of you all know, our current programs, the ones that I'll talk about this evening, are automotive technology, cosmetology, electricity. We have medical assistant and medical terminology, also nurse aid, 2 levels of our practical nursing, as well as welding. Just to let you all know what we have done in the past, prior to COVID, we were really beefing up our recruitment efforts, and we looked at it as a school and just knew that we could always, that recruitment is our bread and butter, so to speak, in terms of, we know that students have to choose our programs. So we thought about our recruitment and what could we do for recruitment. We go out, the normal thing was to go out to do high school presentations, me to go out and give a presentation on our programs. And we added to that, Mr. Benson termed it the PCTC Roadshow, because we decided we would take a lot of our props and things from our classes and go to each high school. And at those high schools, we took our teachers. They leave their lunchtime, and so that students can meet with them and talk to those teachers one-on-one. We also do tours for the high school students, as well as we added in tours for the middle school students. We overhauled just this past year our recruitment and overview video, because, and I'll talk about that in a minute, while we updated that. We also have a signing day event. Some people have asked me, they've seen it being done other places, and we've done that now for quite a few years. The idea originating out of Henrico County, and then we grabbed onto that pretty quickly, and we love that. And we also are going to have tours for the elementary school students. Our technical center does have an application for admission. In a normal scheduling year, students would schedule through Power School. They would request our classes, and then they would fill out an application that I would give out when I go out to the high school presentations. This application has different data points on it, everything from their GPA to attendance, which is crucial. And then the students on the second page, they have to show their interest as to, what made them choose the program that they chose. And then they get to rank also for us, what is their first choice and what is their second choice. This past year, because the way that scheduling was set up and not all students were in school to schedule physically, like in front of the computer, and it was online, we had actually uploaded our overview video to Power School, whereas students then in a Google form, they looked at our video and then they chose the classes. So what we did, just because I got a lot of questions on this year, this was the first year ever, and when I show you the enrollment numbers, you'll see why. This is the first year that I've been at the Technical Center, this is going on my 5th, that we actually sent out acceptance letters and waitlist letters. Our community, really, that was new for everyone, because technically, in the past, if you have wanted a class at the technical center, you signed up for it and you were in the course. But there's been so much interest that it's become more competitive. So we took the data points from our normal application, and each high school then put the data in for the spreadsheets of the students that had requested our classes. Our current enrollment, this just makes me proud to look at this spreadsheet. When you look at our current enrollment, I've put for you like our max enrollment of each program that we have, because some programs we have are 1-year programs, some programs are a semester long like nurse aid, some programs are 2 years long. And you can see what our max enrollment is, what we can take in. And I know when you look at it at first glance, it seems like in most CTE courses, it is by law, it's a 20 student cap for safety purposes because of lab intensive side of our programs. Some of our programs, 20, we don't have room for the 20. So, that's a hint, I guess, at expansion. But you can see that our max enrollment for each level, you can see our total enrollment that we have. And if you notice, what is awesome to see is that 4 of our programs were maxed out this year. And you can see how many we had on our wait list. Like if you zero in on electricity, you'll see that electricity has room for a total enrollment of 20. We have 20 students in the course. We also had to wait list actually 26, but some students had dropped it and then we took some off the wait list, so we had to wait list quite a bit of students. And I'll talk about how that's going to lead to another slide. I showed you, I wanted to make sure that you could see the difference between the high schools, and really it's quite equitable. If you look at LHS and PCHS, and then our postgraduates. Postgraduates, like we have 2 postgraduates in our cosmetology program. Both of those were high school seniors last year that started as a senior, so they are now 1-year postgraduate. And also we have postgraduates in our practical nursing program, and I've talked about that with you all before when we discussed practical nursing program in the past. In the next slide, I just wanted to go over with you all, when you talk about increased interest, you talk about, expansion. And Dr. Fox and I talked about, she wanted to know what our current needs were and some of the immediate needs. And also our foundation was asking about our immediate needs. So sit down and think about what we need currently. Well, we need expansion of a student parking lot. We have a lot more students driving to the technical center, because if you think about our first year programs, we are at 90% capacity. So we're almost full with our first year programs. So expansion of the student parking lot. A second electricity teacher. We looked at that this year and it didn't pan out, but if interest holds for electricity as it has in years past, it is sad to have to wait list more students than you can take in. So we are looking at adding a second electricity teacher next year, as well as an additional electricity lab. I already have an idea of where that electricity lab would go. The welding classroom, when you look at our welding facility, what we see right now was always phase 1. Phase 2 is to finish retrofitting the second half of that storage facility that we turned into a welding facility. It looks like if you're there at the technical center, it kind of looks like a caged in area that we keep some storage things. But the idea was always to finish that out for a classroom, as well as a bathroom, so that they didn't have to keep coming between the buildings. And then storage for auto tech, electricity, and welding, because when we developed the welding facility, then that took some storage away from the other programs, and we do have quite a bit of equipment that needs storage. And then looking at future growth, thinking about where we would like to go at the technical center, some expansions of offerings would be, Dr. Fox and I talked about polling students this coming year. We do have career inventory or search programs like Major Clarity, but maybe even developing a survey that asks students, of a wide variety, what are they interested in, so we know where we should target our focus. So potential programs obviously could be IT. It would be wonderful if we had that. More trades. Our foundation is always asking about plumbing. They want HVAC. There are things obviously that are there to be had at the technical center. Vet tech. I've had students talk to me about that. Pharmacy tech, as well as public safety. When we went to Chesterfield Technical Center, we were able to see a class that was public safety. So it had a bit of law enforcement, a bit of fire and EMS, so that
students could go in that and kind of see, it's like exploratory to see which way, which spoke to them, I guess, the most. And then also, we are partnering with LFCC Workforce Solutions. They have asked, what do we need at Jenkins Hall? How could they help us out? And with the interest in electricity being what it is, it would be great if our students, when they leave us and they go out in the workforce and they need electrical level 3 and 4, if they would have that close to home instead of having to go to maybe Triplet Tech or other places. And then the last thing is a commercial electricity lab. If I didn't say that, I think Mr. Williams would be very upset with me. He has talked about having a stand-alone building in which you had metal studs so that we really mimic the residential side in our current electricity lab, and it would be nice to be able to mimic the commercial and industrial side of it. So that's our future growth, and that there are numbers. Do you all have any questions for me?
Well, I think it's a great story.
Thank you.
Really a great story. And, there was a graduating class a couple years ago, had some decent athletes in it, and they were going to go to college. They ended up looking at the numbers and everything, and they're doing trades now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great thing, and I think that's the way to go. And going commercial is very important because there's a lot of jobs. I mean, how many vans go down to PC? They're not working on residential. They're working on a lot of commercial stuff as well. And blueprint reading is a major part to be able to do anything like the Sullivans do. So I would make sure you got some blueprint reading in there as well. And I know some people that can probably help you with it. But it's a great story, and it's a news that I'm not used to hearing since I've been on the board. It's always been a different message. And this is great, and now can we get it done? And the 20 enrollment max, so is that for juniors and seniors? Is that total of 20?
That would be like per class. So typically, like if you look at Electricity 2 has a 20 cap, and then Electricity 1 has a 20 cap. So the program could take in 40.
So 40. Okay. All right, perfect.
I just want to say thanks for reaching out to the elementary level, because you plant the seed so that they know and then come forward. And parents need to know, because sometimes parents think, oh, you got to go to college, you got to do this. With the trades, if they have the right information, there's a whole future out there for someone who wants to go into that. And to add on to what he said about blueprinting, at one time we had a CAD program.
We did, but that was up at the high school, right?
Right, and if there was something that we could do to implement one of those, because we have a graduate out of that CAD program, and let me tell you, there have been jobs that engineers and architects designed, and they didn't work. This guy went in and showed them why it didn't work, because he's got that background, and they're just amazed. The other two, the architects, engineers, they get the bookwork, but they don't get the hands-on. And that is a valuable, I don't know how popular it is now, but we benefit from it every day.
It is nice to see that we are finally bridging the gap, I think, in education, where we're letting students and parents see that, a four-year degree is not the only way to a rewarding and lucrative career.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do we share salary ranges that?
I do. When I go out on my recruitment, I'll have what the class is about, like what are the skills you learn, the average salary that they could earn, as well as the places they could work locally, as far as like Northern Virginia. But yes, I do share that in our recruitment presentations.
Because that money's only going to go up, because baby boomers are not going to continue to work forever. And that's a huge part of the workforce in this industry that's going to retire. Who fills that gap?
Exactly. When you talk about polling, which groups are you polling?
Well, we would, I would say 9th and 10th graders, to see, we could go back as far as the middle school, because we want to see what they would want in the future. So,
yeah, just my suggestion, I would think about doing middle school, only because to put a program in place, as you know, takes many years, plus you got to find the staff. So if we go back to middle school, know for when they get to high school, and we've already got that planning, and know that 20, let's say if your max is 20, you already have 28 kids that want to join. So the program's ready to go when they're ready to go.
Right.
It's not 3 years after they've graduated and may not be the needs of the upcoming students. So I would just think about maybe doing, 6th, 7th, and 8th when you're polling your high school students as well to know future needs.
Right. Thank you. And I thank you all, as I end, thank you all so much for being behind us and supporting the 5-day a week with everyone in class. It is crucial for every level, but it's 100% crucial for a hands-on course such as we have at the Technical Center.
Thank you. Any other great report? Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Pettis. We have a division gifted plan, 21 through 26 year. Mr. Hopkins. Oh, and Mr. Runyon? Okay. I only have Mr. Hopkins on here. So.
That's all right.
Mr. Runyon and Mr. Hopkins.
You can have both of us. So good evening, board. Dr. Fox. This evening, we're going to update you on the Page County Public Schools 2021-2026 gifted plan. You should have received a highlights overview of the plan, so you don't have to read the whole thing. To give you a little bit of the backstory, myself and Mr. Runyon, I support the elementary gifted program. Mr. Runyon supports the secondary, and we work together in tandem. This summer, we worked with the specialists, both at the elementary and the middle school level, to redraft and revise our plan for the division. After we did that, we were able to meet with our parent local advisory committee, get their input and their feedback. And what you have before you tonight is the final version of that. So in summary, if you're looking at this highlight sheet, thank you, Mr. Samples. Part 1 and 2 really remain unchanged. A lot of that talks about our statement of philosophy and it really to seek and identify gifted and talented students among all ethnic, racial, socioeconomic groups, limited English proficient students identified with a disability. That has been our philosophy and will continue to be our philosophy. Number 2, part 2, program goals and objectives. Last year was very difficult for us with the local advisory committee to get that to meet. Virtual was new for a lot of us, and then getting together was sometimes hard to do. So this year, our focus, and you'll look down, if you jump down to part 10, our focus this year is to bring that back to the forefront and meet with our parents that have signed up and volunteered to be part of that. We had a pretty decent turnout for our first meeting. We did it virtually. Everyone seems very comfortable with that. We'll continue that type of format unless we can meet in person. If people feel comfortable with that, we'll do that. So we'll go either way with that. But our goals in that is to get people back together at the table. And part of this revised plan talked about sort of over the 5 years of different components we're going to look at. And this year, the part we're going to look at, one is the identification process, how we identify students, 3, 5, and 6, 8. And then that process, and also the parent community involvement piece and getting our parents more involved, having a voice at the table as far as our gifted programs. Parts 4, 5, and 6 really remain the same. I would like to highlight part 3 real quick. Historically at grade 2 is when we screen our students going into 3rd grade. So at the end of 2nd grade, we're screening our students to see who's going to be eligible for that GT pool or population that we would then do a final test on. Historically, we use what is considered locally normed groups. And that was basically one of our tests, which sort of skewed our data, if you would. So at the advice of our school psychologist and speaking with her, she advised we look at not only when we screen those students, that we look at the nationally normed results for that particular screener that we're using. So we're going to try that, and that's really the biggest part with part 3 that we're changing in this going forward with the 21-26 plan. Let's see, Mr. Runyon's going to talk a little bit about part 8 for you.
So part 8 mostly is addressed towards the middle school and high school. Anyone who is eligible, meets the requirements, can be part of any advanced studies programs that's outlined in the program of studies. At the middle school, they do have gifted classes so that they meet with their gifted teachers throughout the year. And then at the high school, they can take the dual enrollment classes, they can sign up for honors courses, they can apply for governor's school and the governor's school academies in the summer. So they have a lot of different options. And also at the high school, once a month, clubs meet, and there's a gifted club, and those students will work on projects and some enrichment activities. That didn't happen so much last year with COVID, but they did meet today at the high schools to schedule their club days, and so the Gifted Club will be back at it again this year.
So just to piggyback on that, just so you know, K2, so our students in kindergarten through second grade, participate in what we consider enrichment. So those students are receiving services through the GT specialist through their teacher. So the GT test specialist is supporting their teacher. And then 3-5, we're going back to our GT center where we'll have our students hopefully be able to interact with one another if we can continue as we're doing. It's at 3-5, so that's what our plan is for that. That really is it. That is the highlights. We'll take any questions you might have.
How many GT elementary teachers are there?
1.
So how's she given pushing enrichment across 4 schools and running a day program?
So
Once a
GT
week.
Center is
It's once a week, right?
once a week, 8:30 to 1:30, and then she travels to the 4 schools in the afternoon to support those teachers. So she's at a different school.
Different school to begin the day.
Yeah, she starts at LES, that's where GT Center is housed, and then she travels in the afternoon to the various other 4 elementary schools.
And who gives you the names of the reps for the local advisory committee?
It comes from the GT, the teachers, the
teacher
GT
gets it.
teachers, and they're in communication via their individual websites with families and parents. As far as that's how they communicate, and they basically ask who was willing to participate. So we had a pool of people that signed up.
I only have one other thing. Your mission statement speaks about how you want to make sure that every child basically is represented regardless if English is your first language, special ed. But then I find it very ironic that we only use the GIA test for how we identify what they're, like you can't just, let's say you are dyslexic, you can't just test in it's gifted in math. Do you understand what I mean? Because based on this, it says your area of giftedness is general intellectual aptitude. Well, you might not hit the score that you need if you have learning disabilities or if English is your second language. So I'm just wondering if the mission statement is really aligned with what we're testing, if that makes sense.
It's a good point, and I don't disagree with you at all. And that's part of what we're going to focus on this year is that identification process. I'd be happy to pick your brain about that if you've got time one day and we could just chat. That'd be great.
Unfortunate for you, I'm also in charge of the challenge program.
That's why I want to pick your brain.
My job, so.
Because that is one of the focuses I want the committee, that Mr. Runyon and I talked about, is having the committee this year along with the GT specialists looking at that, because that's what we want to do. We want to be inclusive and have all the players come to the table, right?
Where my problem is, how do we get the EL students, for them to actually even be recommended, that the teacher can see past the language to recommend them. So
Recognize it, right?
It is tough, what test is going to suit everybody, or can you use it? So
Dr. Painter, though, we do use it's a rubric score to accept into gifted. The test is one component of that. We do use parent surveys, student work samples. So we do use other components that might not show up to try and get there as well.
yeah, but sometimes they won't even get recommended to start with by the
initial screening.
Yeah, because you're not going to give the whole kit and caboodle, do the whole rubric with everybody you screen in second grade, right?
Correct.
Your GT teacher would hate you if you had to do that. But it's just the issue if, kids are actually recommended.
We do rely on our classroom teachers to pick up some of that, because the teacher can make a recommendation at any point.
A component of this, and it's not a focus just on this plan, it's been other plans that's been put before the board, and it's just a quirk that I have, I'll admit that, but I don't see a budget aligned with this. For me to look at a plan and then have to as a board decide if we need to cut something, it's helpful if a plan like this has the items and then a budget that goes with it. So we know, well, if we have to cut something, where are we cutting where we don't want to cut? So it may come out of a grant, and that's great, but I think knowing where the money's coming from for each of the components, I think will be helpful.
Can I help them out with this?
Sure.
This is only something that, it's a program that you get board approved. It's not tied to a budget. It's how you're servicing those kids only is all that for.
But everything has a dollar amount. I mean, paying for the test and paying for the teacher. And so to me, I think having the dollar amount in some form to help out when it comes to making a bigger budget, knowing how each of our components that feeds into instruction and feeds into the budget, I think would be helpful.
That might just have to come later. This is all they have for their.
Right, and I understand that. I just say it's a pet peeve of mine because everything has a money aspect to it. And how can we say we're going to do this when actively we don't have the money to actually fulfill all of it? That's the only component.
Just a reminder for you though, Mr. Chairman, that gifted education is a requirement of the standards of quality.
Yes, it is.
So, you know.
And we're probably doing the minimum right now, teacher-wise.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We are at bare minimum when it comes to that. And,
yeah.
You know, one elementary gifted teacher for an entire school division.
That's unfortunate.
There's not much more to cut. If we cut that individual, there's no program.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm not saying about cutting it. I mean, if anything, to enhance it. But if we don't have the cost associated with it, we don't know how to enhance it if there's no costs.
But this is kind of like a special ed IEP. This is the minimum we have to do. So if at the end of the year, we're like, hey, we need another elementary challenge teacher, we can add it on and not have to change their plan. This is just saying where our services are. This is just the minimum. We can always overserve. We just can't
underserve. Yeah.
Yeah, this was brought to you tonight just so you could see it. And at the end of the day, our goal is to have this posted on our website. And this is something that we would then share with the state because we're in that 5-year review to re-up.
Any other questions?
Well, one comment I would make, thanks for sharing this with us. This is good. And also, when we go to these when we change our meetings from not just being in this room, but to different high schools and one in this room, you know, I would encourage having some of these gifted children come and be at the meeting and their parents, and maybe they can say a word or two, present something. Because public speaking is number one fear, right?
Yeah.
Give them a chance to get in there and give them confidence. Build confidence for students.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Dr. Fox, you're going to get signatures or however that works at your level. All right. Thanks, y'all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Graduation rate update, Mr. Benson.
Good evening, school board members. At our last meeting, we shared some data related to summer school, and I believe, Mr. Chairman, you requested that we give some updates regarding the different graduation classes that were coming. And so we tried to prepare some of that data here for you this evening. So you basically have got both high schools listed. At Luray High School this year, we had 122 graduates. Unfortunately, we do have 3 students that didn't make it. 2 of those are just dropouts. We do not know where they're at. There is no way. We've exhausted our different ways to try and locate those students. And then we did have 1 student who was a non-graduate. And as you work down the paperwork there, you can see in the upcoming class, this year's graduating class, we're saying we have a potential 119 graduates, but we have included that 1 student that we lost out of the previous class in that group. So you'll see them listed again. This is not the easiest thing to track, so I will give a shout out to our guidance and our high school administration because there are a lot of different factors to go into making sure each student meets the different graduation requirements for the diploma in which they are seeking. But we've tried to give you some just talking points or some bullets so you can have a better understanding of the different strategies that we are employing. As you can see, we're looking at things like attendance, the ability to pass SOL tests. There's verified credit requirements. And so I thought this was a pretty thorough report in that, they kind of have their hands on the pulse, so to speak. We're a couple of classes out. You can already see in the class of 22, 23, we're monitoring that far out to see where students are at to make sure. Just remember when we talk about graduation rates, when we talk about on-time graduates, We've listed also things when students are awarded just a certificate of completion, we do not get full credit for those students when it comes to the state reporting as well. So this year's graduation class for Luray High School turned out pretty good, 122 graduates. I would say summer school played into that. 2 of those out of the 122 came from that, but we did unfortunately have 3 students that didn't make it. On the back, you start to see some data from Page. Again, 144 graduates, 6 that came during summer, but also again, 3 students that we just haven't found or haven't been able to get through yet. 2 of those again are dropouts. We do have 1 non-graduate that we did get to summer school. They just can't get through. We can't give it to them. And so we'll continue to work with that student and try and fulfill the requirements. Again, you see some of the different strategies. I thought it was encouraging for me to see that, they're looking at the summer school data and trying to make class schedules and adjustments to where students are at based upon what happened over the summer. And then, again, tracking all the way out to the class of 22, 23 for students not on track. I'd be happy to try and answer any additional questions you may have. I don't know, Mr. Breen, if this was exactly what you were looking for, but we tried to put something together.
No, this is great. Okay. Just as long as we know where some of them are, that we are watching and understand the difficulty because of the number of students and the faculty members that we have and the different data points that we have. But I just didn't want someone to get lost in all the shuffle because of COVID and trying to stay on track with that. And then, so I want to make sure that our graduates have every advantage to be able to walk that stage and not a factor necessarily of our own doing, but something that we can assist them with.
Because we offer the number of credit opportunities that we do, there is always the potential to have what we call early grads.
Mm-hmm.
Those are students that may have been retained early on at some point at school and at a grade level. And so, if they're age appropriate for graduation and they have a plan, meaning they have something that they're, that's going to be post-secondary wise, we always consider those students and have those parent meetings with those individuals to say, okay, maybe it makes sense for you to be done in 3 years. But that comes after meetings, and we make sure that those students have something following our K-12 education. So you'll notice, I should have made note of that. You do notice that in some of the high schools that they've already begun to note that. So we have that in the back of your mind as well.
I would just like to commend everybody that worked on this, the high schools, and this is what is really good about being a small school system, because our people really care. When you're in a big city school or whatever, you get lost in the shuffle. Here, obviously, and ever since COVID started, people have gone out and really made, contact with the students to really encourage them and so forth. And, I'm just amazed at what the class of 22, 23 at Luray High School looks like, 146 students, but I didn't realize Page County had 140 this year, so, or 144. So, again, we're lucky to have the people that we have that really reach out to our young people. And parents, just as a reminder to you all, whenever a question about, the status of the progress in your young people, call the schools, talk to the counselors, talk to the teachers, because it is a communication. And, thank everyone who, helped make this happen, and especially for the report. This is good.
I would add, during our back to school student orientations, both high schools made graduation a topic. They began to outline for parents and students that day, you're going to have this in your class schedule this year. These credits you're going to need towards graduation. These classes have verified credit opportunities. You're going to need those as well. So it's pretty clear right from the day one where we're headed, because those 4 years will fly by.
Good. Faster than what you know.
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
One thing, I just give all the administrators, all the teachers a big shout out, and you as well, because we started tracking it early. We knew we had a big problem. We had a big problem. A big problem. And we tracked it until we got the steps that we needed. And we, as a board, said, hey, let's do summer school. All good stuff. Proactive.
And our plan is, as we indicated at the last meeting, we're summer school's on for next year.
Good.
So that, Dr. Fox knows we've got funds designated for that, and Patty, Ms. Seacrest knows that. That's our plan. So
Good deal.
hoping that we can still, have maybe a few more, but we'll continue to update you guys on it.
And I encourage you to keep those same type of graphs as we go through the year too.
That's great.
Yeah.
I know it's a pandemic year and we knew it.
Yeah.
But hey, let's keep it going. Let's see, make sure we understand it. Because it told us that we had to be a face-to-face instruction.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
That's what it told us.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr.
All
Vincent.
right. Thank you.
We have a request formally to rename Page County High School football track stadium facility to Vincent Buddy Homer Stadium. Dr. Fox?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board. There's a request that's come through to honor Vincent Buddy Comer, who coached football and track for a combined 30 years. He was the winningest football and track coach in Page County history, with multiple district and regional championships and one state championship. In 2001, he was inducted into the VHSL Hall of Fame as a representative of Page County High School, and he continued to faithfully serve our community for 20 more years until his passing. And this is a request that we rename the Page County High School football and track stadium in his honor. It's coming before you tonight as an informational item.
Will it move to approval next
meeting?
We gotta change that policy first.
No, we already did.
Oh, we did?
Yep.
Well, why don't we make a motion to, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, to move the stadium naming proposal to action item 7.04 tonight.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Lansdale.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Dr. Grant.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes. Okay. Opening of schools update, Dr. Fox?
Tonight, I'm just going to walk you through again, as we had talked about each board meeting, we would show you sort of an update on our data as we are presenting it related to health. And then I just have a few other pieces of information for you related to the start of school. And I just want to, before I begin, say thank you to all of the administrators, the faculty, the staff, the bus drivers, the custodians, the food service workers, everyone who had a hand in starting school this week. We thank you to our parents and our students, grandparents, aunts and uncles for all of their work for a smooth start. I know we've had a couple of bumps, but overall we've had a good start to the school year, and we're just appreciative of everybody's work to make that happen. And I'll address a couple of the bumps in just a minute. But if you could move forward for me, please. So if you guys recall, again, the first step is to look at the community disease transmission. And on this slide, this is the one I've been showing you for the last couple of meetings here. You'll see this is for the state of Virginia. And you'll see they're still trending upward in terms of the daily case counts for the past 90 days in Virginia. The next slide is just a reminder of those variables that we are again using to kind of rate where our community transmission is in looking at the total number of new cases per 100,000 and the percent of positive tests. And the next slide gives you those values. So here we are at 821, we're at 205. Again, it's in that high range, and you can see at the bottom is that chart that we're getting far too familiar with seeing. We hope to see that start to trend down. And this is the other one, the percent positive of PCR tests. You're seeing we're sitting at substantial at 9.6%. So when you take those two values together, the next slide shows you that as a community, we're still in that high level. So in the red for community transmission. So that's one factor And this we showed you last month. This is just a state, a map of where we are in the state, and virtually almost everybody is in the same place that we are with high transmission rates. The second is to look at your school level data, and right now we're still going to sit on this vaccine coverage. This chart you saw in the last two meetings as well, just giving you an update. Currently in Page County for adult population 18 and plus, we're at 45.8% vaccine rates. That is a little bit up from July. And then if you look at the column on the far right, you'll see the current percentages for the different age groups for vaccine. And this is for the fully vaccinated, not just for one shot. And you'll see there's a little bit of an increase there in all of those areas as well. So little by little, we're getting more people vaccinated in Page County, and more of our students are getting vaccinated. We then look at the impact of the school level, and what we're going to begin to show you over time is the number of COVID cases that we're seeing, and these would be positive COVID cases. Right now we have, as of the beginning of the start of school this week, we have 8 students who have been confirmed positive cases, and we have 1 staff member. This isn't the number of students that have been quarantined or anything related to that. It's just the positive cases. If we look at our level of school impact, there was a chart that shows you as a school how to rate yourself. Right now, we're rating ourselves for transmission within school at low. Our student absenteeism is low, and our staff capacity is low. And that's based on just these numbers from this week. So what we'll do is over time, we'll begin to look at how COVID is impacting those 3 different variables for us. And this is the chart that shows you how to kind of look at each of those from the CDC's and the VDH's guidance. And right now we're still sitting at that low area. Understanding our community, this is the enrollment information that I've been presenting to you. And I do need to make a correction because I misspoke at the previous 2 meetings when I showed you this information. I shared with you our total enrollment, and I should have been sharing with you just our ADM enrollment, which does not include our pre-K students. So what you'll see there is right now we are 28 students under our budgeted ADM enrollment of 3123. So that number will fluctuate. We're right now, this week we still have some students who haven't come. We're doing our 10-day counts. So I would say by the end of September, early October, we'll have a better sense of where we are. You can just see that fluctuation already in where we were over the past 2. So just know we'll continue to monitor this and take a look at it over the next couple of weeks and months before we report our official ADM counts to the Department of Ed. And then the last part is just a reminder again that we're always looking at those layered mitigation strategies and how we can do more in those areas. We talked a little bit about ventilation tonight. The consistent and correct use of masks. We are working with our new COVID liaison who is on board and is producing and publishing some videos for us to show with our students on how to correctly use a mask and for proper hand washing and respiratory etiquette. So we're going to be pushing those out to students fairly soon. We are still encouraging all parents, please, if your children are sick, to please keep them home. And the same for staff members. If you're not feeling well, please stay home. And then just tonight, a couple of things I wanted to let you guys know about SOL testing results. That information was published today. There was a VDOE press release that came out with a lot of information about those scores. And I think just a couple of bullet points for all of us to remember as we start looking at those scores. They are going to be lower than in past years, and they do reflect the significant challenges that we've had over the last 18 months. We can't compare the past year's scores to previous years simply just because of the differences in the way that students were educated over the past year or 18 months. We are looking at diagnostic assessments that are being given now to students so that we can generate some data to say where are you now and where do you need to go. All of those are going to be used to develop our recovery and school improvement plans. That we'll be sharing more of that information with you at the September board meeting. So you may see those scores get published. I'm sure there'll be reports in the newspaper. There's going to be information about the state and how low those scores are, because everywhere across the board you're seeing very, very significant dips in those scores. So in September, we'll share more information with you on that. And then finally tonight, I just really want to give an update on where we are with our nutritional services, given the challenges that we've had this week. And I just want to reassure our parents out there, we thank them for their comments. and know that this isn't where we want to be, certainly for the start of the school or for any of our children who come through our doors. We are working to remedy that situation both in the short term and the long term. We're going to be reviewing our nutritional services programming, all of our practices and our policies. We'll make adjustments and changes as needed. We're definitely going to gather some feedback from parents and students and our staff for a variety of means. One of those will be through the superintendent student advisory council. Have some conversations with them about what they might like to see and changes they'd like to have initiated. And then we're going to work on our communication and our pushing out of information to families about our food services programs and the different options that we have available to students so that they can understand some of the things that have impacted us, or how, if a student wants milk, how they can get milk every day at school. Are there any questions from the board this evening?
Well, I guess one question I had, I think one of the parents said that we're masking children outside. Is that correct?
Just I believe when I spoke with her, she was referencing like when a kid gets off of a bus and is walking in, the mask is on.
Right.
We aren't in recess. We aren't in, if they're outside for lunch and things like that. So we're having a discussion about that process outside when they're getting out of cars and into the buildings about whether or not we need to maintain those masks or not.
Okay, and are we taking temperatures?
We are not taking temperatures right now. There's a lot of fluidity in that and not always accurate. What we're doing is the parents are doing a health assessment each day. If a teacher or a staff member looks at a student and does a visual check and thinks something might be off, they're sending them to the clinic and we'll take their temperature there.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I agree with that, but I mean, I think it's worth having the temperature taken at the door.
We had a lot of discussions about it with our principals and some of our other teams. And it just didn't, the temperatures didn't prove to be as accurate as we thought they were to be helpful. And we were concerned about it creating a bottleneck, and now you have kids, again, bunched up together and not very spread out in spaces. It's certainly something, what we said we would do is let's assess it for a couple of weeks and see how it's going. If it's something we need to do, we can certainly reinstate it and bring it back.
Yeah. And I guess, I think you said that we have 8 students that have COVID. And those are tests that came back that it's COVID. So, I would love to see an infection rate among the population up there, because if you take the infection rate of the population of schools, 8 out of the 3,100 or 3,200, that's like 0.003% of our students. And maybe I'm calculating that wrong. Smarter people can tell me. But I think that's very low, but we're all red. Huh?
I don't do math.
You don't do math? Okay. So that's one thing I would ask for is an infection rate among the population, because, we keep throwing out these infection rates, which is infection rates from testing, right? 9.6% infection rate of testing. That means, 1 out of 10 people that get tested, or 1 out of 10 tests, are positive. It's not a very high percentage. And when we talk about contract tracing and all those things with students, if we put out 10 or so students, that's why I'm in favor of testing, giving testing available to people. If they come back negative, they should come back to the school.
Okay, we can add that for next
If you
time.
can add that, it gives you a different perspective. It really does. 'Cause everything's red, but really it's 0.003%. I think I'm right. I mean, Mr. Goodman, maybe you can straighten me out.
Well, I would just offer a different point of view. So if you look at Augusta County, they've been open for what, a couple weeks now?
I think maybe 2, yes.
2 weeks, okay. So Augusta County, so you gotta give it time for these results to come in, and you can see that unfortunately the increase in cases over time, we just started, right? We just opened. So Augusta, 3 days ago, 121 positive cases and students and staff reported in Augusta County as of Monday. And then if you look at Rappahannock County, just over the mountain, they had to go virtual this week. So they had outbreaks.
And how many students tested positive?
I don't know that information, but obviously it was big enough that they had to say,
If you
okay,
can find that information, because I would love to understand it better. And I think that's what we need to be comparing.
yeah.
Is against other people and us. Because I personally think when we got that first rash, people were coming back to vacations.
Yeah.
Right? And now it's going to filter down a little bit. And if we can if these same mitigation strategies work, then we feel good about it, right? But if it's low, and which to me, ours is low. 8 out of 3,200 students, that's way low. And we probably lost, the reason our ADM's off, thank you for correcting that, is because they went to Mount Carmel. Students didn't like what was going on in our schools. They said, we're going to go. Nothing to do with you, nothing to do with us. It's political. It's being pushed down on us.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Fox. You're up again for ESSER 3 plan update. Dr. Fox?
Yes, so last meeting, we presented you with a draft of our American Rescue Plan, ESSER 3 spending plan. We posted that on our webpage, and we provided a form for anyone in the community or our faculty or staff to provide us with additional comments to be considered in that draft. We did receive 17 comments back. Some of those were asking for or suggesting things like additional teachers, instructional aides, or reading specialists. Some were requesting tutors for children, especially in the area of special education. There were references to needs for building repairs, things like painting, ceiling tile replacement, HVAC, which we're going to do, desks, chairs, just replacing old equipment, things that have been outdated because we have this money that we may not get again. Also asking for some equipment, science and math, maybe manipulatives and things that students could use in the classrooms, and outdoor learning spaces. So what our plan is, we'll take some of those suggestions, update the information that's here. We will then publish this when we submit it to the state by the end of the month. And then we will move forward. We have, is it 2 years, 3 years? 2 years. We're hoping for 3 or 4. We're hoping to get an extension like the cities and the towns have until 2026. We're hoping to get an extension. But we'll move forward and begin using some of those funds this school year to do and implement some of these things that we've proposed in our draft plan. And we'll continue to give you updates and share with you. The next thing that most likely we'll be bringing to you, the first thing will be the HVAC programming using the money from ESSER 3 for that.
Any questions on the ESSER 3 plans update? Okay. Moving to the next agenda item, VSBA policy updates, AD and GAA. Dr. Fox?
Yeah. You'll be relieved to know there's only 2, and they're very short tonight. The first one is an educational, our AD, policy code AD, educational philosophy, and that is just to correct a typographical error that was down in the legal referencing there. So that's nothing major on that one. The second one is policy GAA, which is staff time schedules. And this has been updated to reflect the adoption of House Bill 7001, which became effective on August 10th. And if you guys recall, earlier this summer, we had a discussion with you about how comp time was now no longer allowed for non-exempt employees. This reverses that and allows us to have the opportunity to provide overtime compensation, comp time for staff. And it outlines for you the procedures for that, the limits for it, and how we need to move forward with that process. So it gives us back some of that flexibility that we thought we had lost, and it outlines for us what we need to do. So those 2 are here for information and questions, and we'll bring them to you next month for action items.
Any questions? Okay. Moving to the next agenda item, it's approval of claim of payment. Ms. Seacrest.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. You all have been provided with claim certification. Excuse me. Operating expenditures $1,284,974.77. Food service $1,577.73. Total expenditures $1,286,552.50. Along with that, you've been provided the list of claims as well as the check register, and I will do my best to answer any questions you have.
That explains it, $1,500 to feed over 3,000 kids. That, yeah.
I mean, those are what are turned into our accounts payable. We
I
don't.
make a motion to approve the claims for payment as presented.
Second.
Motion from Dr. Painter, second from Mr. Googler.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansing.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Booth.
Yes. The next item is purchase orders over 10,000. Ms. Seacrest?
Yes, and I apologize that the money amounts are not on there, so I will read them to you. We do have 3 purchase orders for your approval this evening. We have the iReady Toolbox Professional Development. That is $64,512.96. That would be using the ESSER 2 grant money. We also have the Career Coach Partnership that we do with Fort Fairfax Community College between the 2 high schools. That is secondary vocational local money. That's $15,000. And then we have Lexia Power Up. That would also be using the ESSER 2 grant, and that's $22,000.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How many coaches do we have?
We have 1, and she splits her time between both of the high schools.
And in the past, some concerns, but Mr. Benson, would you say now that it's more
We are
concern-
focused on serving students and working on the ACP plan, meeting the requirements of dual enrollment. We've got kind of some of the other distractions, I think, that you're referencing out of the way. You're
Make a motion that we approve the purchase orders over 10,000.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Dr. Painter. Who's taking the second? Jack. All right, Mr. Lansbury takes the second.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Booth.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, see, it's already in here.
No, this is the policy update.
So the policy update, facility development FAA, school facility name. Dr. Fox?
Yep, this is coming to you now for your approval, and the change that was made last time was to add in the second paragraph that you could approve the changing of the naming of a school facility upon unanimous decision by the school board. So this is up for your approval this evening.
Make a motion that we approve the policy update on the facilities development, school facilities name as presented.
I have a motion from Mr. Painter.
Second.
I have a second from Mrs. Sullivan Smoot.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Booth.
Yes. Now we have the 7.04, correct?
Yep.
The naming of the field.
I would like to make a motion that we formally rename Page County High School's track stadium facility to Vincent Buddy Comer Stadium.
Second.
I have a motion, and a second from Dr. Painter.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Booth.
Yes. Okay, moving into the next agenda item is board member discussion time. I have one thing to state, and that's about our next meeting. That's September 9th at 6:30. This one will be held at Page County High School. Just a reminder to the community that that change has been made. So it will be Page County High School, September 9th at 6:30. Any other board member have any discussion?
You want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. First, I'd like to say the one comment that was brought up but by the bus driver, it's very valid. I hope that our bus drivers do have a copy of any medical alerts of students that ride their bus, as well as a copy of their emergency forms, possibly like in a binder, for each driver, because they might not be in somewhere that they can get somebody on the radio, but they could use their cell phone to call the parent or something. So I do think if that's not being done uniformly across the schools, that it should be done, that they should know. Secondly, with the food, we know it's an issue. It was gross. I would not eat it. I would not make my child eat it. I would not feed it to the dog. I agree. But I'm assured that Dr. Fox is taking care of the problem. And, you know, I don't know if it's how it was presented to parents that they couldn't help, but, or, I mean, even the school board or people working the central office building, they can't just go in and help. You have to have like safe serve certification and things. Could we have done better? Yes. Did we know about it? I didn't know about it until it was on Facebook. So there you go. But I will say, whoever sent it to the news stations, it's very disappointing that you would want to shame our entire community and put such a cloud over everything good that's being done to put a focus on that. So right now, Page County is known for serving slop. So I just wish that, you know, we knew it was a problem. It was told to the right people. And with that, I'll say, I think Dr. Fox is doing fabulous.
Yes.
I mean, anything we have brought to her attention, anything that comes to her attention, she's a newbie. She's the rookie here, the outsider, but she is trying. She's going to the fair. She's going to churches. She is trying to get to know everybody in the community, and I'm not disappointed in any way, shape, or form. And finally, I will say, I'm getting a little sick of everybody saying about the school board members need to go. They don't care about kids. There's not a single person here that does not care about kids. And if you think I don't care about kids, I sat here and figured it out. My per diem rate at my day job is $393 per day. If you think I take all the time to answer people's emails and come sit for hours in a meeting a couple times a month for $113.52 every 2 weeks because of some power trip or something, I don't need it. So here's how it works if you want to be on the school board. Everybody has a 4-year commitment. My term expires if I choose to stay the entire time. Goes until December 31st of 2023. So on January 1st of 2023, you can visit Carol Gant at 103 South Court Street and pick up a packet. And in that, you'll get all the forms, everything you need to do. You even have to set up a checking account for your campaign funds. And then you can collect 125 signatures from people in your district. And you can be on the thing, and you can be the only name on it for District 3 in November of that year. And you too can get your $113.52 every 2 weeks to deal with this and get blamed for every single thing that goes wrong. All right, I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Payne.
Thank you, and I was told that we're padding our.
I am, yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
I just want to, there's a legislative conference in Richmond on the 23rd. Is anybody looking at going to that? That's the same night that we have a board meeting, and I've checked with the SBA. It'll be over at 3:30, but I'd kind of like to go, and I haven't decided yet, but I would leave early in order to get back for the meeting. But I didn't know if anybody else had looked at it and considered attending or not.
Which one is it?
It's a legislative conference. It's at the Hilton place in Short Pump. It starts at 9, I think. I was just curious if anybody else was thinking about it. If you do, let me know within the next week.
I'd be interested.
I would just echo some of Dr. Painter's comments about Dr. Fox and her team. They're doing an incredible job. Yes, there have been bumps in the road, but they're problem solvers. They're trying to do what's right for kids, trying to do what's right for the school system. I'm really encouraged with what we're seeing. You just have to give her team and Dr. Fox a chance. Second thing I want to say. going to beat the drum here a little bit. So if we really want to get a handle on future COVID outbreaks, you might want to consider getting your teenager vaccinated. I'll give you 3 reasons. Recently, the Pfizer vaccine received full FDA approval. I know a lot of people were holding out on that, so that's something to consider. Number 2, COVID cases in Virginia as a whole are on the rise in Virginia. Those are pediatric cases. And number 3, there are increasing transmission rates in Page County. We just heard that from Dr. Fox. So let's all do our part to protect our staff, our kids, and our family members.
Any other discussion from the board?
Just a couple things. So we had a meeting with the Virginia School Board Association this week, and it was good training. I appreciate that. And Mr. Breen, I think you kind of had that arranged for us, which was good. I did learn something in there. They were against some of the laws that's been passed recently due to COVID and the masking mandate that we have now. They pushed back. They think it's a local decision. I believe that I agree with that. So it should be a local decision. So I appreciate those folks for doing that. I actually want to thank the parents. I appreciate people letting us know when there's a problem. Those school lunches, total failure. You'd have to give our county an F for it. But I think Dr. Fox has done a good job of trying to rally and trying to understand it. I think there's issues we have with that program for sure. And that's going to be up to your leadership to help leadership of that program. I appreciate you being down at the fair. I actually brought people over that have negative comments about the school for you to talk to them, and you sat there and talked to them and listened to them. And that means a lot. A lot of it's being thrown your direction, and you wanted to come here. Welcome, right? Welcome. So, with that, just stay diligent with it, persevere through it. We'll get through it. We got bus issues as well. I hate to hear that kids are sitting on a bus that's 90 degrees with a mask on. That is unacceptable. And it sounds like you're getting where that's going to be fixed. I hope it happens very quickly. Can't have that. And I really think next year we need to really look at this calendar. Do we really want to start in this week? I've heard short staff, the people being down at the fair and all these things. That's things we need to consider as we continue to move forward with it. So I encourage parents to keep us accountable with things. I think it's a good thing in my opinion. Now, would I like for them to couch it a little bit different ways? Yeah, absolutely. I like to couch what I say sometimes in different ways. But I think it's good to hear those things, and I think we're going to address them. I think we're going to do well. And there's some things that's really good that we're doing. That the reports that we heard today were great in some of the different programs. But I think you haven't been able to pay attention to that. It's been everything else. It's been everything else except for teaching children. And we got to get a handle on it, and filling your positions is part of that too. And you can't run yourself too ragged. But thank you for what you're doing. Thank the staff for what they're doing. Sure.
Any other comments? I just want to echo on Mr. Painter's sentiment. Dr. Fox hasn't even been here 2 complete months yet. People forget that. She inherited a lot. She has to handle a lot. She does have a great team behind her. But they are short-staffed themselves. And that's not an excuse. It's just what it is. I think her and her team have juggled what they've needed to juggle very well and have come out ahead of things that some parents don't even know about. But are there challenges? Yes. Is she meeting those challenges head on? Yes. Will she get them completed and being better than before? Yes. She just needs time. She's not even been here 2 months, folks. Every school year, we have issues about busing, about food, and about staff. It's not unique to her. It's not unique to this year. So in time, as she stays longer, things will run more smoothly. We've seen that. She's extremely organized and extremely dedicated for the short amount of time that she's been here. I've never encountered in my entire educational year, except for one person that I work for, that is more dedicated to a school system. So give her time. She'll solve and fix our problems unitely with the community, parents, teachers, and staff. I know it. It's part of the reason why she was chosen to be superintendent. Thank you, Dr. Fox, and thank you to your team.
I am very fortunate to have a great team.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
I have a motion for Ms. Smoot.
Second.
Let me get it out. I have a motion from Ms. Sutherland Smoot for adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Painter said. Yep.
From Dr. Painter as a second.
Yes.
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 Yes. We're adjourned.